good? All right. The June meeting of the Board of Adjustment will come to order. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jerry Capone, Chairman of the Board. Today we have a quorum present. Barry Brandt is here, Walt Cassell is here, Jan Conacy is here, and I'm here. So we have 4 members out of 5 present today. Randy Mason will not be available today, so it'll just be the 4 of us. I have some introductory remarks regarding what the business will be today. This afternoon, we have 3 cases on the calendar, as well as some housekeeping matters to attend to. The housekeeping matters that we need to approve minutes of 2 prior meetings and consider some changes to our rules of procedure. But the most important work that we'll do here today concerns 3 variance requests. All 3 variance cases, the applicant is seeking relief from the zoning code setback requirements. Now, under Delaware law, an applicant for an area variance must prove that the setback requirements create an exceptional practical difficulty. In order to determine whether an exceptional practical difficulty exists, the board must weigh 4 factors, and these are the factors. First, the nature of the zone where the property lies. Second, the character and use of the immediate vicinity. Third, whether the removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect the neighboring properties and their uses. And fourth, whether failure to remove the restriction would create an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. According to case law, this standard is satisfied only when the difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. Those words come from the Delaware Supreme Court. Now, the first case we're going to deal with today is 80 Oak Avenue. Then we'll consider the 6th Street case. Then we'll consider 23 Kent Street. Everyone who chooses to speak today will be required to give testimony under oath. I don't think we have a court reporter present today. She's not doing this virtually. So please, no cross conversation. And if you're going to speak, please keep your voice up. Mr. Townsend will be administering an oath to everyone who chooses to speak today. So we're going to have to do that as well. Let me ask the clerk whether the notifications for the property went out in due course.
The agenda was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on June 17th. The notice was sent out from the portal on the same day. The agenda was amended and reposted on June 21st. The public notice for case number 0322-03 for the property located at 80 Oak Avenue was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on May 27th. The public notice was published in the Cape Gazette on May 7th and June 3rd. Coast Press on June 8th and Delaware State News on June 2nd and June 3rd. Notification specific to the case was mailed out to the property owner. Addresses within 200 feet of the subject property and signage was posted on the property. The public notice for case number 0522-04 for the property located at 9 6th Street was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on May 27th. The public notice was published in the Cape Gazette on May 27th. And June 3rd, Coast Press on June 8th, and Delaware State News on June 2nd and June 3rd. Notification specific to this case was mailed out to the property owner. Addresses within 200 feet of the subject property and signage was posted on the property. The public notice for case number 0522-05 for the property located at 23 Kent Street was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on May 27th. The public notice was published in the Cape Gazette on May 27th and June 3rd. Coast Press on June 8th and Delaware State News on June 2nd and June 3rd. Notification specific to this case was mailed out to property owner addresses within 200 feet of the subject property, and signage was posted on the property. Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Janis primarily. Who puts the signage up?
Typically, building and licensing goes out and puts the signage up when it's prepared for us.
And who takes the signage away?
Again, typically, building and licensing were to go out and remove it after, usually a day or two after the meeting occurs.
And have you ever run into occasions where the signage is not there?
Occasionally, yes. Usually due to weather circumstances, but more so sometimes the property owner or someone removing the signage from the property.
You know if the signage is still up for the 3 cases that are on the calendar today?
I haven't looked today, but the last time I looked at the end of last week, the majority of them were still there.
They're actually not there.
I was going to get there, but I was going to
okay,
see.
sorry.
Okay. So the last time you looked, the signage was there.
Right. Yeah, and typically, as part of that process, I provide pictures to the city secretary to prove that we have, actually posted the signage on the property.
Okay. We may have more discussion on this as we move along. Can you wait?
Sure.
All right. All right, so it sounds like everything was posted properly. There may be some question whether the signage was in place for all 3 cases for the full duration, but we may get some evidence about that. So let's turn our attention to 80 Oak Avenue. This matter has had a tortured procedural history. First of all, is there anybody here on behalf of the applicants? All right, it's a tortured procedural history. We had a hearing on the case back in October of 2021. As that hearing drew to a conclusion, the applicant asked for a continuance prior to us beginning our deliberations. The applicant wanted time to try to resolve this matter with the approval of his neighbors. The continuance was granted. The case was then put on the December calendar for a decision. On December 22nd, 5 days before the hearing, the applicant's attorney notified the board that he was unavailable for the hearing on the 27th and asked for another continuance, which was granted. The case was then put on the January 22nd calendar. Again, the applicant asked for a continuance, which we also granted. Then in February, the applicant came to the hearing and wished to withdraw their application. We approved that request during our February meeting. On March 29th, the applicant filed a variance request to erect a stone riprap in basically the same location as the non-conforming retaining wall, which I believe has not been removed, even though the applicant withdrew his request for a variance in which he asked for that wall to be permitted to remain. On Friday, June 24th, which was just a few days ago, our attorney got a call from Mr. Forston, attorney for the applicants, advising that he tested positive for COVID and is unable to attend today's hearing. He further advised that he could not arrange for anyone else in his firm to handle the matter today. He is asking for the case to be continued. The request came in, I believe, in a telephone call to Mr. Townsend.
It was followed up with an email in an effort to supply a writing.
No doubt in my mind that Mr. Forston is positive for COVID and he cannot attend today. But I think that based upon the history, that we may want to have some discussion about the posture for this case. Because of the lateness of the request, our rules require that we vote on the request. So as I said, I think this case deserves some discussion. There are several areas of inquiry I'd like to explore before making a decision on the continuance request. First, I'd like to know if there's anyone here today to speak for or against the variance request. Okay, I don't see anybody indicating that they're here to speak on this case. Second, Mr. Forston sent a letter to the board dated March 30th, 2022. That letter was in the agenda items for today. The letter does not indicate whether a copy was delivered to Mr. Brullier, who is the adjacent neighbor with the standing water problem. Can anyone tell me whether or not Mr. Brullier got a copy of this letter, the March 30th letter? Because he's not indicated, he's not listed on the recipients of the copy of the letter. I think Mr. Brullier, based upon the past history of this case, I would say that it's important for Mr. Brullier to get a copy of this letter. And I think he should have it in enough time to be able to respond and react to it. I'd like to know, in the letter, the letter states that Mr. Brullier is okay with the recommendations, with the proposal put forth by Mr. Forston. But we've been down that road before. I'd like to know whether Mr. Brullier really is in agreement with what has been stated by Mr. Forston. Third, our rules require that owners of properties within 200 feet of the property in question got notice of the variance request. I am aware that the city owns a property adjacent to the property in question. Did the city get required written notice?
We don't send out to the city.
All right. Mr. Mandelis, so let me ask you this. Based upon what you know of this case, do you think that the city has full notice of what's going on in this case?
I do, and I can report that I updated the mayor as recently as this morning.
Okay. So the city, just like any other neighbor in this particular case, has the rights and of any neighboring property to comment on this case.
Correct.
You would agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is the city prepared today or at some future date to offer an opinion whether this variance should be granted?
Mr. Chair, we generally don't take positions on variance requests simply because they're not intended to be adversarial. There's an agreement between the applicant and the city that the proposal does not meet the code, and therefore a variance would be required. But applying the standard that the board applies is not something the city typically takes on. We expect the board to hear the facts and apply the standard.
Well, I understand what you're saying for most other cases, but in this particular case, the city is an adjacent property owner. And the problem that I can see in this case all comes down to one point where three properties intersect: Mr. Brullier's property, the applicant's property, and the city's property. So I think that in this particular case, the city should be able to make a recommendation or let the board know what its opinion is in regards to how this variance should be addressed.
I guess what I can say, Mr. Chair, is that the city does have an interest in that we recognize that there is a drainage problem in the area, and it affects residents, and to some extent it affects the city park there. So to the extent that this variance would ultimately resolve those issues, then the city would be supportive. I can't say from an engineering perspective whether all the work that's being required and the variance that's being required, is necessary to satisfy the drainage issue or not, but to the extent that there's a resolution to the drainage issue, that's a good thing in the city's views.
I'm not asking you to tell me if the city has a position, what it is right now, but what I'm telling you is this, that if we grant a continuance for a month or whatever, I would expect the city to come in and say, because we own a property that is adjacent to the problem here, we're entitled to make our opinion known. Just because the city is the city doesn't mean that it has less rights than anybody else in regards to property ownership and maintenance of the city properties. So if the city has a position, the board wants to hear it.
Understood.
When the hearing
Understood.
gets heard.
Okay.
Now, if the city is going to say, well, we're going to rely on somebody else's expert, that's up to the city, but the city may want to have an engineer look at what the proposal is in this case. I don't know if that's been done, but you may have a month now to do it. So that's what I'm suggesting in this case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
We'll take it under advisement. Thank you.
If I could speak up.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the practical difficulties we'll have in a situation like that is that the city doesn't always speak with one voice. So we've got a building and licensing division that's got responsibilities with respect to the solution that's being proposed or advocated in this case. I think they would concede that they've been very much involved in communications and efforts to deal with the issue. But as far as the city expressing an opinion on whether the variance should be granted or whether it is adversely impacted, it's hard to say who would have the authority to speak. So would 5 commissioners need to authorize some kind of a resolution or some kind of charge to a spokesperson from among council to express its opinion? And would that be pursuant to the public hearing, or would it be in advance of the public hearing, in which case it would be disadvantaged by the inability to be formulated during or following the public hearing? So I'm just expressing that there are some practical difficulties with this
There
concept.
may be practical difficulties, but this case is pretty old. It's been kicking around for 7 or 8 months at this point. So I think that the city should be able to rely on the expertise found that it employs in its workforce, or that it employs on a contract basis to decide whether or not the proposals being made in this case are likely to solve the problem here. And so I think that should be achievable. I don't think that the city government is incapable of giving a voice to an opinion regarding a city property. And I'm going to vote, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to vote for the continuance because he's sick. But when this comes here next time, I really would hope that everybody, including the city, is able to give an opinion as to whether or not this proposal is acceptable and likely to succeed.
Sherry, could I ask you a question, or there's a
What do you
lakes-
want to ask about?
Well,
I'm not finished with my comments
Oh, I'm
yet,
sorry, I thought
okay?
you were. Okay.
No. Okay, the next issue regarding this property. If it does get continued, are there any issues relating to the evidence and testimony that we've heard so far? I don't want to get bogged down in, and the board members relying on statements or evidence that was introduced at our earlier meetings. Now, how did this case come to us today? Is it a new application, or is it a modification of the original application? Because I think that makes a difference. I think if it's a modification, then the evidence we've heard before stays on the record. It's the law of the case. I'd like, but I don't want this issue to be addressed for the first time at the next meeting. So does anybody have any opinions on that?
It is submitted, my understanding, Mr. Chair, is that it's submitted as a new application. The former application was withdrawn. I think that you probably, as a board, could take judicial notice of the former proceedings and incorporate them into your proceedings, but this is a new application.
All right. This is what I'd like somebody to do, either you or our counsel, Mr. Townsend here. I'd like you to be in contact with Mr. Forston and tell him that assuming that the case is going to get continued, but I'd like him to consider the board's request that we be allowed to take into account the evidence and the testimony that we've heard prior to today as part of the evidence in the case,
Okay.
for when we eventually decide this case.
Thank you.
All right. Jan, I interrupted you. Well, I
no,
cut
it's
you short
okay,
before.
Jerry.
Go ahead.
May I respond to one of your questions before she does? I'm just researching my emails now, and I did forward the entire application package to Mr. Brallier, including the letter from Mr. Forston, so he does have it.
Thanks for clearing that up for me. What did you want to say, Jan?
Well, I had, when this is a new application, then essentially they've been in violation. Oh, I'm sorry, Ann. If this is a new application, then essentially they still have the structure that they wanted a variance for, and they haven't done anything about it. It's still sitting there. So what happens to that? That's one question. My second question is in addition to how the city feels about there's a lakes management plan that the city's been working on. So how does the riprap affect the lakes management plan, and how does it, with the city?
So Jan, I think we were addressing an issue specific to the case. And I don't want to get into discussing the facts of this case per se.
No, I don't want to discuss the facts. I want them to be prepared for the next time to be able to address this issue. Because the city owns Lake Girard, so they're responsible for Lake Girard. It doesn't belong to the state like Silver Lake does. Therefore, in addition to the city park, they're also Lake Girard, another piece of the city's property that needs to be taken into account as we review again. And then, well, I won't bring up the sign, so since, you know.
Well, I have a concern about the sign too. So I'm inclined to think that the sign's not there anymore.
I can tell you it's not there, because I live down the street.
All right, so somehow that sign was removed. All right, and I wonder who removed it. I wonder when it was removed. I wonder why it was removed. And I wonder whoever removed it, what made that person feel he was entitled or had reason to remove it.
Well, in addition to being removed, it was, the location originally was in the center of the property. I walk by there almost every day. Was in the center of the property where they typically are on all of the properties. And then a couple of days, I don't know how many, sometime in the past week, it was moved to the very side of the property so that you couldn't see it unless you were coming down east on Oak Avenue. You couldn't see it in any other way. And then it was gone. So.
Okay, so somebody or someone removed this sign and contrary to our rules. All right. Having said all that, okay, does anybody want to speak in regards to the continuance request that we have in front of us? I see one hand raised. Mr. Evans, would you come up to the microphone, please?
It's obliquely related because you're going to vote on this
Excuse me?
thing. It's obliquely related because you're going to vote on it, but a comment that was made, I was on the call, I might have been only 2 people on one of the previous hearings. My understanding, and when I heard this was, when I read the report, I couldn't tell the answer to the question, which was my understanding of the end of perhaps the last one was that the applicant would work with the city engineer, no one said an engineer, to come to a resolution that would solve the problem, they didn't mention the city's part of this, of the 2 neighbors. That apparently didn't happen, and from what I just heard, and the report is not all that clear, is that the applicant hired their own engineer. That was not what was decided at that hearing, or at least what strongly suggested. I'd have to go back and read the language or listen to the tape. That disappoints me immensely, as if it wasn't a neutral party, I would be here really wanting to talk.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
all.
All right, do any board members have any comments to make about the request for a continuance?
Yep. Just 2 comments in what Jan was saying in preparation for if we vote a continuance. You know, we've been at this 7, 8 months. I've seen no photographs because in previous information that we've received a continuing problem. Okay, if we were all to walk over there now, what would we see? And then we had heard what Mr. Evans was saying about an engineer, a city engineer, you know, working on this. I don't want to talk about the specific case, but the solution, I'd like to hear what solutions were worked. All we see is this is the solution. I would like to have seen more information as to what was, you know, what options were looked at versus, you know, just a riprap. That's my comments.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. Thank you for clarifying that this would be a new, I guess, application in front of us. But when there's a new application, what I notice is there an additional fee paid? Because I noticed that there's no
As far as I know,
Yeah.
there was no additional.
Because there's
fee.
costs of putting things in the paper and,
Right, so we're, the city bore the cost?
There was no additional fee collected for the second application. I don't know if that was a determination of the city manager to waive it, which is typically who we would request that from, or if because this was such a continuation of an ongoing application, even though new, no fee was required. But you're right, typically a new application requires a
I
fee.
was wondering, yeah. I just wanted to understand, yeah.
We'll take that up as an action item.
But it's not the applicant's responsibility to pay the fee if the fee's not demanded. I mean, it's an interesting question, but it's not disqualifying.
And lastly, later on in the meeting, we're going to be talking about whether adopting minutes from the previous meetings. But in the February 2022 meeting minutes, there's an entry that says, in regards to this case, the applicant revealed that the wall is coming down. And that was my recollection. But has the wall come down yet, Mr. Janis, as far as you know?
It has not, Mr. Chair.
All right.
They're not here, but I think what they would say is that there was fill material added. The wall is retaining the fill material. If the wall comes down without contemporaneously installing the riprap, the fill material would then be washed into the.
I'm pretty sure they would say that, but we were told in February, apparently, that the wall was going to come down. All right. Due to the health nature of this continuance request, I feel that the board must grant the request. There is no imminent threat to the public safety that requires us to go forward today. It is frustrating, though, to have this case lingering for as long as it has. Is there a motion to grant the continuance?
I move we grant a continuance.
Is there a
based on
second?
Mr. Thorsten's health.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? All right, so the motion for continuance is granted unanimously. Let's put this on the next meeting, please. Okay, well, we can move on from 80 Oak Avenue to our next case. And that would be 6th Street. Are the parties here for 6th Street? Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to ask you folks to come up and have a seat at the table here.
You sit here. You sit.
Okay, good afternoon. Would you mind introducing yourselves, please?
Yeah, I'm John Connolly, my wife Karen. We're the owners of 9 6th Street.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Janis, what can you tell us about this case?
Thank you, Chair. Before you today is case number 0522-04. The location is 9 6th Street. The applicant owner name is John J. and Karen N. Connolly, 5024 Woodbox Lane, Mechanicsburg, PA 17055. The applicant seeks relief from the following: 270-25 rear yards and a related code section of 270-50 extension of non-conforming structures. The applicants John J. and Karen N. Connolly, owners of 9 6th Street, Rehoboth, Delaware, 19971, are seeking a variance to 270-25 rear yards to allow an addition to an existing structure that currently encroaches a setback because of changing zoning ordinances and setback requirements. Because the existing structure where the second floor would be added already encroaches the rear yard setback, 270-50 extension of non-conforming structures does not provide relief, and a variance is required. The applicants seek a rear yard variance of 3.8 feet to allow a second-story addition to the existing structure. The property is located at 9 6th Street, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971, and is situated in the R2 General Residential District. The property is listed in Sussex County tax records as tax map number 334-13.20-190.00 and is a typical 5,000 square foot lot. Application background. The property owners completed renovations to the existing structure in June of 2010. As part of this application, an addition was added to the rear of the property that conformed to the 10 rear setback requirement during that code cycle. The valid permit was closed out and all inspections were completed. The applicant is seeking relief from the following ordinances. 27025 rear yards. A rear yard shall be provided on every lot, the minimum depth of which shall be as prescribed in the following table. In an effort to decrease the length of my report here, I just included the R2 as a 15-foot rear setback requirement. The placement of any material that is not a grass plant or a natural mulch is considered structure and therefore violates the 15-foot setback requirement. This rear setback requirement was revised from 10 feet to 15 feet during various code revision cycles, making the existing structure encroach the rear setback requirement by 3.8 feet. Though the structure already exists, the proposed addition would be added to an already encroaching structure. However, no further encroachment is noted in the plan review. 27050 extension of non-conforming structures. B, any legal non-conforming structure devoted to a conforming use may be extended provided that such extension conforms to the applicable dimension requirements of the zoning district in which the legal non-conforming structure is located. With this application, the rear of the structure, which is sitting beyond the required 15-foot rear yard setback, would be increased by the addition of a second floor. Because of code revision cycles, the rear setback requirement was revised, resulting in a previously permitted structure becoming an existing non-conforming structure. The conclusion is that the proposed addition to the existing structure does not add any additional lot coverage, and the combined floor area ratio of the existing dwelling and addition does not violate the current zoning ordinance. This proposal may not proceed until a variance is secured. If the variance is granted, the owner should contract an engineer to verify that existing construction will meet the minimum requirements for this addition. They can then proceed with permit submission requirements. Thank you.
Who's
You
going to
wanna-
speak on your behalf, sir?
You need to swear us. I heard you mention earlier everyone was going to be sworn to testify.
Yes, sir. Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
Mr. Chairman, board members, it's a very simple request. I think I put everything in the application. We purchased this property in 2009, and it was generously described as dilapidated, a little cottage. Over a period of a year and a half, we constructed well within the zoning requirements. In fact, we moved the setback in beyond the 10 feet to 11 feet, I think 2 or 3 inches. The work on the cottage was completed. We won the Rehoboth Town Award as Best Renovation. We were on the Art League tour. This was our jewel. We now find ourselves, after I've had 3 back surgeries, with not enough space and the family descending on us. We now have 4 teenage grandchildren, and it's just become too small. We have asked to just literally place on top of our master bath, suite, and laundry room another floor, period. I mean, the idea that the zoning would require us to offset that addition by 3 or 4 feet causes us a dramatic hardship financially. The structure will be an eyesore. I mean, it's not going to look like an addition. It's going to look like somebody added onto a mobile home. It's just not functional, not to mention if we do the construction consistent with the zoning, we're going to have a bowling alley because structurally it can only go so far out. So we completely eliminate the ability to do it at all, which causes me great, in my mind, hardship getting around the first floor with all these teenagers and family members. We would be adding 2 bedrooms and a bath, and it really is, it's a simple thing. One would ordinarily believe this is grandfathered because nothing's changing on the ground, nothing. It's gonna be the same footprint. It's just gonna go up and add 2 bedrooms and a bath. We already know it conforms to everything else. It'll conform to the lot coverage requirements. It'll conform to everything. Of course, we have to do that anyway. So looking at what you said earlier and looking at your powers, it's certainly not contrary to the public interest, period. I mean, that's a non-starter. I think it's an exceptional situation. It's kind of an odd set of circumstances. Initially, I thought this was a no-brainer. And then I heard this and I thought, well, nobody would want to put their addition askew. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And then recognizing the spirit of the ordinance and that nothing's going to change the character in the neighborhood, I have present my builder, Dave Ferran from Premier Developers, and 2 of my neighbors, Ken Pena and Don Walker. Don Walker's my next-door neighbor, Ken's across the street. They're here to support our request. It strikes me this is just common sense. Now, I recognize variances are exceptional. I recognize you can't grant them all. But if there's ever one that needs to be granted, it's this one. I mean, I honestly view this as a no-brainer. I recognize it's not. But if you were putting a 2nd floor in your house, you certainly wouldn't want to move it 4 feet and have it indented in the back, hanging over in the front, and look awful. But we can do it that way. It just makes no sense. And I think the other comment I saw in one of your documents was changing the character of the neighborhood. Almost every house in our neighborhood is 2 stories. We're one of the few that has this 1-story cottage that has the appearance of dormers, not just a vaulted ceiling in the main area. So I just don't see how it changes anything except we get to put the addition on. So anybody has any questions? The technical aspects of this, I'd refer to Dave Ferran. The neighborhood aspects, I'd refer to my neighbors.
Neighbors want to speak on your behalf, we're going to give them that opportunity, but not at the moment.
So that's the essence. Everything that I've said to you, I've put in. And now, the one thing that everyone needs to be aware of, and this may not seem like a hardship to you, but we're talking about substantial change in the cost of the structure if we have to move it, because it changes. Instead of putting it on all 4 foundation points, it has to be set aside, which means it has to be braced. There's all kinds of different changes that have to be made, which will cost dramatically more.
You have a figure in mind, or?
I recall Dave Ferran saying something like $50,000 more.
Right, that would be substantial.
Yeah, I'm not talking about pocket change here.
So if you're finished, I have a couple of questions.
Sure, I'm done. That's just it.
So it sounds to me like your situation has changed since you built the house. Sounds to me, at least I can hear myself. Sounds to me like your situation has changed since you built this house. Is this your permanent residence?
No, but we're here a great deal.
Okay.
My wife's retired. I am sort of not really retired. I still go to the office every day, but I work from here as well, so.
Okay. And your situation has changed in that you've had some physical problems?
Yeah, changed in a couple of ways. I've had 3 back surgeries and 2 fusions. When we built this, I have pictures of me standing in the yard looking at the work. I couldn't stand in the yard today. Getting around is very difficult, as you saw me come up here. That's changed. The other thing that's changed is when we went into this, our daughter was in the process of getting a divorce, and we had 2 grandchildren. Well, she's remarried. Now we have 4 grandchildren. Turns out they're all teenagers. So for any of you who have had teenagers in your household, it's like a herd of elephants. And here I am with the cane, and here they are trying to jam them in 3 bedrooms. I thought if we could.
Our bedroom.
Well, our bedrooms, yeah, they can't come near our bedroom, but then it's the first floor is one basically large room where we do all entertaining and have dinners And a kitchen, dining, living area with a vaulted ceiling, it's perfect. Bedrooms off of that, a hallway to the back where our bedroom, bath, and a laundry room. That's where we want to put the addition. So my circumstances have changed in the hardship of the cane and the hardship of a herd of grandchildren. And I see this family as only expanding, not contracting. So it's our solution, I believe, to the problem.
I don't have any other questions. Does any other board member have a question for the applicant or for the city?
I just have a question.
Dan, could you speak into the microphone?
I apologize that I'm not very good at reading plans, but it looks like you'll end up with one structure. Are you attaching what was the rear cottage to the back, to the house?
No, that's not a cottage. It's
attached.
It's attached. Everything's attached.
Oh, it's attached. Okay,
yeah.
because in the reading, in the verbal part, it didn't sound like it was attached, because you
Yes.
said you were removing a patio.
No, we're going to remove a portion of the patio for the coverage issue. I'd like to keep the
okay.
patio intact,
But
but
you didn't request a variance for that, though.
we didn't, but maybe we should.
No, you
No,
didn't.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Okay, so it's going to be one house. Okay,
Yes.
that's all I need to understand,
All we're
Jerry.
doing is just putting that on top of the existing
All right,
structure.
I get it. Thank you.
Any questions from any other board member? Mr. Townsend, you have something to?
Yeah. Yes. You spoke, sir, about the inadequacy of the home for the family members that are using it. Can you talk a little bit more about the size of the home, the configuration of the home? To what extent would you call it an undersized home, not for a large group, but for a normal-sized family, or?
It was perfect for my wife and I and friends on occasion, or my daughter and her husband, or my daughter and her husband and 2 grandchildren, because we have 2 bedrooms, a half bath and a full bath, a large sort of kitchen, dining, living area, and then we have a hallway back with windows on both sides and patios on either side to this wing in the back. That's where we built our master bedroom, bath, and a laundry room. And that's where we want to put the addition on top. So it was adequate at one point, and it's a great, great house. This would really make it more functional. I think, honestly, we undershot it. We could have put that addition on then. I mean, we could have built a 2-story in the back. We just didn't think we had the need for it. And keeping in mind that when we built it, we went well within the 10 feet. We went in 11 feet, 2 inches from the property line to try and make sure we were well within the setback. We could have gone up at that point, we just didn't. I don't know when it changed to 15 feet. If I was clairvoyant, I would have built it before it changed.
Any other questions from any board member? Anybody from the audience care to speak for or against this variance? Okay, this gentleman here.
Yeah, my name is Don Walker. I live next door to him, 10 6th Street, me and my wife.
Okay, and Mr. Townsend's going to swear you now.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, well, me and my wife live at 10 6th Street next to their property, and all I have to say about it is basically they're good neighbors. It absolutely doesn't impound anything about our house or our neighborhood. We think it's going to be okay. There's nothing there that would bother us about him doing what they want to do.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Walker? Seeing none. Good afternoon, sir. Your name is?
Good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Pina, P-I-N-A.
Mr. Pena, I have a hearing deficit, so I'd appreciate if you would speak up.
Kenneth Pina, P-I-N-A. I live at 501 Jones Lane, which is across the street from the Connollys.
And sir, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I, as well, echo Don's sentiments, and I think it was very helpful, Mr. Chairman, this criteria that you set forth at the beginning. Listening to criteria and understanding their needs, I think they do check off all the boxes. They're kind of an unfortunate victim of the circumstance of the zoning change in terms of the set-offs. But the neighborhood, with what they're planning, would fit well into the neighborhood. Almost every house on the street is 2-story, and we have no objection whatsoever to them going forward.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Pena? Seeing none, please have a seat. Mr. Evans, would you care to speak on this case?
Yes,
Retroactively for the first one also.
Well, I don't think we were in a public hearing. That was just a procedural thing. So,
This is actually also, but go ahead.
sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And add your address, please, before we
Tom
forget.
Evans, 512 Newcastle Street, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
Thank you.
This is procedural. I'm not even commenting on pro or con, but Mr. Capone talked about exceptional practical difficulty and what needs to be proven for that. I've heard hybrid versions of what you're actually hearing today. Take notice that the applicant asked for a variance. The city responded that it was a variance, and it was noticed to the city citizens as a variance, not exceptional practical difficulty.
Okay, thank you.
Just for what it's worth.
All right. Is there any other comment regarding this case? All right, then I think we're in the position to decide the case. Does anyone care to put forth a motion?
Yeah, I will. I believe that the applicant has met quick check items number 1 and number 2. I do not believe there was any impact to the neighborhood. And in fact, if we do not approve this, I do think when we get into quick check item number 4, we're going to have a negative impact on the neighborhood. You know, it would be an eyesore to jut this in. But I believe the reason I want to make a motion is because of, as we've seen in the past in previous cases, of financial hardships, financial difficulties are an exceptional practical difficulty. I want to make a motion to approve this request based on, if we were to deny it, we would create a financial hardship for the homeowner by having to put massive support beams in based on, what we hear and what we see in these diagrams would be, a major impact and an eyesore to the neighborhood, I think.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Now it's time for a discussion of the motion. Now, Barry, you've given your feelings. You let your feelings be known. I'd like to add mine. I'm inclined to agree with the variance request. I believe the proposal will be in keeping with the neighborhood appearance. I believe that the evidence has shown that it will eliminate substantial additional construction costs if done in a different manner. I believe that the variance will allow for less density on the first floor, allowing the applicant who has physical disabilities more space to move around on that first floor. So for those reasons, I would vote in favor of it. Walt?
Could I ask one question to the applicant at this point?
Excuse me?
Can I ask a question to the applicant at this point?
You can now, if you want to.
What's the size of your lot there? Just out of curiosity.
50 by 100.
50 by, okay.
Yeah, it's the standard
The
Rehoboth
standard lot,
lot.
okay, I was just curious. I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay,
For
all
the
those
same
in favor
reasons.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I, with one additional comment, have your builder soundproof your second floor. With 10 grandchildren, I know.
In fact, I thought about that last night when I suggested to my wife we put hardwood up there. She said, oh, no.
No.
Absolutely not. It's like a herd of cattle running
So-
through the house.
Aye for me, Jerry.
All right, well, congratulations on getting your
Thank
variance
you very much. We
granted,
appreciate
and
it.
Thank you.
Enjoy your property.
Street. Okay, thank you.
I guess that leaves you.
Jerry, could I just say something first? Typical of Delaware, I know Mark Redden, but it won't influence anything, you know. I mean, it's not because I don't like him, it's just nothing, that's what happens here all the time, and it won't influence my decision at all in any way, shape, or form, but I just want to know that I know
So you
him.
don't believe there's a basis for recusal, and I'm not
No,
gonna make
no,
any
I don't,
further-
because if everybody knows everybody in Delaware, and I just happen to know Mark.
Well, Mr. Redden, I don't know you, but after today, I guess I will.
Don't worry, you don't have to give me a Christmas card or anything.
Come on up and have a seat. You, Mr. Redden, you must be Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Jerry Capone, I'm chairman. You heard me introduce the other members. Welcome to our meeting this afternoon. Going to ask the building inspector to give his report on this variance request.
Thank you, Chair. This case number is 052205. The location for this one is 23 Kent Street. Owners are listed as Aaron and Lisa Katz of 23 Kent Street, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971. The applicant seeks relief from the following: 27021, natural area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage, both A, natural area, and B, floor area ratio. The applicants, Aaron and Lisa Katz, owners of 23 Kent Street, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971, are seeking variances to 27021, natural area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage, subsections A, natural area, and B, floor area ratio. The variances are being requested to address ongoing water drainage issues from a second-floor balcony. The applicant seeks to extend the second-floor deck approximately 2 feet beyond the exterior first-floor walls. The extension will drain collecting waters beyond the face of the existing structure. The property is located at 23 Kent Street, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971, and is situated in the R1 residential district. The property is listed in Sussex County records as tax map number 334-14.13-186.00 and is approximately 4,200 square feet in size. Application background information. The proposed area of addition has had ongoing water infiltration issues because of the existing methods of construction. Clogs and backups occur frequently because of tree debris. The property is existing non-conforming in that the area in that the allowable floor area ratio and lot coverage exceed current zoning ordinances. The structure was built when a more robust construction was permitted. Information to the variance requested. The applicant is seeking relief from the following ordinances: 27021 natural area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage. Natural area in R1S, R1, and R2 districts, a minimum of 50% of the gross lot area and 50% of the front yard setback area of every building lot shall remain as natural area as defined in 274 definitions. Natural area is defined as that portion of the gross lot area that is dedicated to either trees, grass, flowers, bushes, other plantings, and/or mulched areas. For the purposes of calculating natural area, mulch areas shall be limited to the use of vegetative ground covers and shall not include the use of clamshells, decorative stone, or other similar hard materials. I've laid out the allowable, existing, and proposed coverages thereafter. The allowable lot coverage, as you can see from my calculation, the total lot coverage would be 2,100 square feet. The existing lot coverages added together, both structural and accessory, are calculated as 2,767 square feet. And the proposed lot coverage, existing coverage to be 2,767, and the proposed addition would be 32 square feet for a total proposed coverage of 2,799 square feet. The enlarging of the second floor deck would create an overhang area approximately equivalent to the existing roof overhang. The area under the expanded deck would then be calculated as lot coverage. From the calculations provided above, the applicant desires to increase lot coverage by 32 square feet for a total of 2,799 square feet. 27021 natural area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage B, floor area ratio. In the R1S district, the floor area ratio for the residential structure combined with the accessory structures, if any, shall not exceed 0.5 in R1 and R2 districts. The FAR for the residence structure combined with the accessory structures, if any, shall not exceed 0.6 for the first 5,000 square feet of gross lot area and 0.03 for any additional gross lot area, or for properties incorporating an accessory swimming pool, 0.5 for the first 5,000 square feet of gross lot area and 0.25 for any additional gross lot area. Provided calculations, allowable floor area ratio is calculated at 4,200 square feet times 60%, which is 2,520 square feet. Their existing floor area ratio is 2,767 square feet, and the proposed floor area ratio is actually going to be lesser. I believe they are removing some things that would be calculated as the floor area ratio. Mainly the trellis that is currently covering the deck as existing would be counted as floor area ratio now. They're going to take that trellis off to allow the expansion. The proposed addition to the second floor deck would go beyond the existing exterior wall by approximately 2 feet. This area would need to be included in the calculation for FAR. Because the existing second floor balcony is currently covered by a trellis that is proposed to be removed, the calculable floor area ratio actually decreases. However, the overage still requires a variance. The conclusion is that the proposed addition creates overhangs and coverages that need to be calculated in allowable lot coverage and floor area ratios. These overages exceed the allowable calculations and therefore require a variance be granted. Thank you.
So now it's the applicant's turn to make a presentation. Who's going to do that?
I'll be doing that, so.
Okay.
Swear me in.
Mr. Townsend's going to swear you.
And name and address, please.
Mark Redden at 107 South Washington Street, Milford, Delaware.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm, yes. Oh, I guess to talk now, sorry.
Start talking.
So, the numbers that Matt ran off at you, which probably started to blur together in your head, are all very accurate. We come here today because we have an existing condition, basically an unintended swimming pool on this man's front porch, basically. Currently, there is, and there's pictures in the packet that we sent you it's a pocket inside the roof that has one drain that isn't sloped. So every time it rains, it backs up into the door, down the wall. It's ruined the structure beneath it. We've already put some effort into repairing it in the past, but this is going to be an ongoing problem. There's really no solution to stopping the water getting in with the way this is originally built and designed, which was not done by my client. So what we're proposing to do is actually remove the roof to the right on the picture here of the balcony so that we can extend the balcony out, slope it, drain it so it drains to the existing drain line tied into the existing gutters. Now, unfortunately, thanks to some fun quirks in the Rehoboth Code, the roof overhang does not count. The balcony overhang does count. So practically speaking, we are turning what wouldn't count against us, and that will count against us to make the structure more sound. So we don't have this ongoing nightmare of, rot, mold, water damage, et cetera. As far as how this affects the neighborhood, I mean, we're not going any closer to the street than the existing fascia already. We're just going to have to take out the roof line, build it up. If you look at the drawings that I sent in, the before and afters are not that dissimilar. We're not going any closer to the street than what's there. We're just making it so that we don't have this maintenance nightmare that this little patch of tent roof provides. Actually, we have a picture in the packet that kind of shows it's in line with the neighbor. Kent Street's kind of a strange street in that the lots are a little undersized by the code. I'm not really worrying that as a major point of emphasis here, but it is something to take into account in that we don't actually have the standard 50 by 100 lot that you have like in almost all of our Rehoboth lots. So we're already starting from under the 8 ball, behind the 8 ball here. The house was placed on there a long time ago. It's wouldn't be allowed today, but we're not looking to really grow it. We're really more converting one roof type to another roof type, which unfortunately, thanks to the way the code is written, means that we need this variance.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions for either the applicant or the city?
I have some brief questions to the city. Mr. Janice, were the permits in the past, have you said, that allowed them to build this originally before the homeowner owned it? Were there permits on record?
Yes.
For this, okay. And then to Mr. Redden, looking at picture number 3 on page 2. So we are not, the railing above is sitting right on top of the exterior wall. Is that what we were seeing?
Yes, the railing is currently on top of the exterior wall. We would like to push the railing to the fascia and extend the balcony out to that point
Okay.
so that we can use the same gutter line to drain that balcony so that water will not
Okay.
be backed up into the house.
And there was no way to leave the railing as is and still put the pitch and still get it out to that?
The problem
gutter?
is, in order to get the water from the exterior wall to that gutter, we have to do something, and we can't go up, so it has to be flat, matching the balcony. Like, anything that involves a pitched
If
roof
you
in
try to
there,
go up, you would be above the door.
it's the
sill,
exact
right?
same problem
Okay.
happens again, so it,
Sides too.
yeah, so.
Come up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a pocket.
Okay.
This is the least disruptive option we have to do this without getting like really strange things, really expensive things, really awkward-looking things, or resolving the same water problem we're trying to resolve now.
And the desire, of course, is to keep a balcony, not to build the structure out to be
Then
compliant.
we'd have an FA, then
Yeah,
we'd be talking about an
We're
FAR.
actually, we're actually removing the
I mean, we
trellis.
looked at that,
Yeah,
That's right, okay.
Now
so,
you're
that's actually, yeah.
you're converting a $15,000 problem to a $100,000 solution.
Okay, no further questions.
You want to swear the, Mr. Katz?
Oh, yeah, since you talked.
Mr. Katz, do you solemnly swear, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, do you mind emphasizing a point or two that you just made to the board?
I'm just saying that that if we were to try to enclose it, it would add FAR, we'd be having an FAR discussion, and the cost of solving the problem would magnify by a significant order.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How long have you been dealing with this issue?
8 years? Since I own the property.
Excuse me?
Since I bought the property.
Okay. Mm.
When I bought the property originally in like 2013, there was water. I saw some water damage to the floor, and I thought, okay, what's the problem? We'll deal with it. So we replaced the floor. A couple years later, we had water trickling down the wall. I had somebody come in, they popped the ceiling, saw the water was coming in from the balcony above, and then it's been every year to 2 years, I'm rechanging the ceiling drywall. We had to replace the floor, which you saw a picture of, the whole subfloor is rotted out. We've replaced the hardwood floors there several times, and most recently, it backed up into the room to the side of it. It was so heavy, it sat there for so long, it collapsed the ceiling in the room adjacent, and so we had to repair all the drywall in that room.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant or the city? Is there anyone in the audience? That would be you, madam. Do you have any comments you want to make on this case? And if you do, you have to stand up.
I just am here as an interested party. I own the property directly behind 23 Kent. I own 6 Cookman Street.
And ma'am, your name,
My name is Gail Richards.
and do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So how do you feel about this?
I think the house is, the lot's overbuilt. It has, there's a lot of issues, but they were there before this gentleman purchased the property. I've owned my house since 1997. And they're non-conforming lots, as we all know. Non-conforming, the lots are smaller.
Right.
And they're close. But the impact on me is the back of the house, and that's why I was here, because literally, if the gentleman's on his porch smoking a cigar, the smoke's in my porch.
But this, we're not talking about the back
That's
of
why
the
I'm
house.
saying I'm here as an interested party, not to have an opinion one way or the other regarding the front of the house. I went through, I spoke to, and if this is Ann, I want to thank her for the time this morning to walk me through to see what was the intent of this hearing, because I did not get my notice until this weekend. And so that's all. I just wanted to, she explained how to go through, see what was being proposed, and I just wanted to make sure there were no surprises. So
All right.
I've been patiently waiting, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank
Well,
you.
but thanks for coming in. Thanks for taking an interest. Okay, I think that concludes the evidentiary part of the hearing. Is there a motion?
You want to make, it?
You know
Okay.
all
All right.
You know all the rules.
I'll make a motion. I believe this meets quick check item number 4, where if we were to deny this, we are creating a hardship for the homeowners. Still shaking my head as to how they would originally put the drain in and why they did this, and this poor homeowner is faced with this, financial hardship for repairing this every few years. We are not going to stop tree debris, so that's going to be left unchecked. And I believe that if we don't approve this or don't address this, the house will continue to deteriorate. So I want to and I believe the addition of the 32 square feet doesn't exceed the natural lot coverage, not I believe, I know, from the material. And the change does not increase the footprint of the structure. So we're staying within the footprint. So I want to make a motion to approve this based on the variance request meeting quick check number 4, that if we were to deny this, we would create an ongoing financial hardship for the homeowner.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any other comment? Does any member of the board care to make any additional comments? Seeing none. Do you want to give the reasons why you're, let's vote on it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I vote for it as well. So I think we need to give the reasons. I will adopt as my rationale, the reasons given by Barry. I don't think I could have said it any better.
I know I couldn't have said any better.
And I'll put the third on that. So it's well said. And plus they're reducing FAR in addition, so.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right. So that concludes the hearing. Congratulations on your variance and good luck getting that problem fixed.
So when I started, Fred would have to correct me, and Jerry, Barry, I think you want to say it this way.
Well, maybe
I'm learning.
You can print this and
paid
send
off.
it out to all of us.
Thank you.
So we're not done yet. We
Oh,
have a little.
that's right.
A couple more things. But let's wait for Ann to come back.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think everybody is. I don't know that I have it.
She thinks that it's among the papers that she stacked in your.
Well,
Yeah, I don't see it. Maybe she put it down here. Ah, here it is. It's here. So let's see. That's great. So Jan was absent. Well,
June 27th.
yeah. So you reviewed it. Do you mind reading this decision?
This is what we did before.
Mm-hmm. So I guess these are the minutes.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
We missed you.
Oh, he was absent. She was opposed. Got it.
Signing the opinion from the last case. You weren't here.
It was quite a while.
Can I, do
one
I,
is it?
I don't sign today. Yeah. We didn't approve the minutes.
Oh,
did we?
I know what that is,
We're gonna do the minutes
Belmore,
now. We're gonna
Belmore.
talk about the photo.
So,
Yeah.
so what do I have to do, read it, and then,
No, is that it?
I voted against the Belmore, I know that, even though I made the recommendation that it
that's
be,
Yep, that's it.
yeah, that it be
So if
pervious.
you would just, before you leave, if you would sign off on it.
This is March, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't sign.
Yep, right. You were marked as absent.
Yeah.
So that last case, he was talking about by taking the trellis off, he actually reduces some of the FAR. Remember John Madden used to talk about when a team traded a talented but troublesome player, it was addition by subtraction. This was subtraction by addition.
Who would design an interior drain? I was like, maybe it was done a long time ago, but wow.
It probably was. So our remaining business today is we have to approve 2 sets of minutes, and we're going to talk about whether we should require photographs for variance applications. Let's go to the minutes first. So the first set of minutes is February 2022. So I reviewed this, and first thing I noticed, when in the roll call, it says that Mr. Townsend was in attendance virtually. I don't believe, I think he was here in person. Fred?
I think you're right, yes.
Okay. And that same issue occurs in the March minutes. I think Mr. Townsend was here in person as well.
Wasn't February virtual? For all of us? In February? March was.
I think it was.
February was virtual.
Okay. Then everybody was here virtually.
I'm
trying to remember. All right, so the problem is on the March one then. February was correct then. All right, thank you. And let's go back to the February minutes. I referenced it before. There, on the second page, it says, today, the applicant revealed that the wall is coming down. And that was my recollection too. Is that what?
I agree.
So we're approving that as the minutes? Okay. So is there a motion to approve the February 2022 minutes?
I'll make that motion.
All those in favor, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, it approved unanimously. Now going to the March minutes with the correction regarding Mr. Townsend appearing in person. Are there any changes anyone proposes to these minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept these minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Now we get to the final business, which is, Jan, you had an idea that we should require photographs in our rules. So, Fred, I guess you proposed changing the application to state that we will require photographs. Is that right?
That's right. And I had been supplied, if I may, a form which consisted, I think, of the Planning Commission's rules with respect to a particular type of application that gets filed. Some of the terms or some of the circumstances surrounding that particular requirement aren't present here, but it was extremely helpful to me to have that head start, and I came up with this notion. So that's what's before you to decide whether you want to make that a requirement of the application.
All right. I'm inclined to agree with this. I think that photographs are a good idea. The amazing thing is, people come in with photographs that aren't really helpful. And I'm going to tell you that last case, he had 3 photographs. I didn't think that they were all that helpful. I mean, it moved the ball, but he could have done a much better job of taking photographs. I would have appreciated a photograph from the curb looking back at the property. He didn't do that. So we're never going to solve the problem by just requiring photographs. It still takes some intuition or initiative or a thought process to make the photographs as meaningful as possible.
Is there any guidance out there in public record?
The Planning Commission requires certain photographs. Glenn can probably, I can't remember.
Yeah, they do require photographs from the property looking north, south, east, west, so you can see what's around the property, as well as the property itself and the area that's under consideration.
So they're very specific about what they require. And
They are, and I did intend to, this bolded language is also added, saying that your photograph has to include the existing structure that might be amended, and that's the D1, or that might be extended, excuse me. And then the subject parcel taken from across the street that also depicts the adjoining parcels or relevant portions thereof. I was going to make the same point that you made, that as long as this group understands that adding this requirement should not be the basis of refusing to go forward if someone submits photographs that aren't quite as telling as we would like them to be. This is a step in the right direction, but it shouldn't be a grounds for denial that we've gotten a bad set of photographs.
So how would it be worded for the rule? I'm in agreement. So if you could read.
Well, the highlighted area, or maybe it wasn't circulated, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see it yet.
Oh, you didn't see it? I have 2 copies.
Okay.
all right.
So that's the application, and there's a new subsection that's added at subsection D.
This is the other one?
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's based largely on a application requirement that the Planning Commission imposes on its applicants. I think there might have been one standard that I could not incorporate or wasn't helpful to us, but And one last thing I'll say is, because it's certainly not Ms. Conacy's fault, because she got this to me as quite a while ago, but since this is a last-minute addition to the calendar, we're going to vote on this at the next meeting.
We might want, as Mrs. Richards pointed out, maybe for some houses, the property behind them also. depending on the variance.
Across
they're
the street
asking
is hard. If the variance is in the back of the property,
So
it's
for.
going to
Right,
be
so we
hard.
would need to add something like that.
So I made an attempt to address that by saying that accompanied by colored photographs of a certain size of the subject lot area, including existing structures, if any, where the variance from area restrictions is sought or from which the appeal is taken, and then a view of the subject parcel across the street that also depicts immediately adjoining parcels or relevant portions thereof. So it's the relevant portions thereof.
So you know that people are expected to present their best case. So you would think when a litigant shows up, they're going to make the best case possible. They're going to provide all the exhibits. They're going to have experts here. They're going to show photographs. But what we've seen is that rarely occurs. I mean, how many times do we come out of a case going, I wish we would have had something else. I wish they would have had an architect here or shown pictures. Happens all the time. Why would you not make your best case? I don't think that people do it intentionally. I think that they just are not in the mindset to consider these evidentiary issues. So they often hurt their own cases. Now, what happens when we get an applicant come in with a set of pictures, and we look at those pictures and we go, these are crummy pictures. They don't do much for me at all. I think we can just say that he hasn't presented his best case. It may still be enough to win, but
You can't knock them for it.
yeah, but we can't make him give us the best pictures possible. That's the way it's going to be.
Mr. Chairman, I agree too, because it's like, it helps to see it. And Barry, to your point, on 24 Kent Street, I mean, I had to go on Google and look at it because I couldn't tell what the railing was, if it was right there or set back, and it was set back in that case, but.
I mean, another example for photographs, I won't say it by case, but by the 7-month case that we're working on, show me photographs. I'm expecting a river running down this property line. If I were to walk over there now, do I see a river? Show me photographs.
Hasn't rained enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Well, and
so-
today, we wouldn't have been able, I mean, even if he had pictures, if it didn't include the back, I had no idea. And poor Mrs. Richards, I mean, our neighbors are close to us, and I had to listen to their air conditioner, which clanks and clanks and clanks and clanks for the
All right,
entire
so I
week.
think we're done with our business for today. We're going to vote on the pictures next week, next month. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Just let me ask you a second. So right now, there's no more cases except 80 Oak.
I don't know.
Is that, Ann,
One more?
besides 80 Oak? Okay.
For next meeting.
Give us
next
a
month.
hint. Give us a hint. What street is it on? You don't know.
I'll tell you none.
Matt, sound familiar to you?
2 syllables.
I don't recall off the top of my head. We were prepared for this onslaught this
Here
month.
we go.
I did want to let you know that when Matt and I meet with the applicants, when they come in to discuss if they possibly need a variance, we do let them know that photographs are welcome and that it would be a good idea.
Good.
So we've been saying this all along, and it's to the point where it's really up to the applicant until you changes.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I'm surprised they don't.
All right, is there a
agree.
motion to adjourn?
All
Go
right,
ahead.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.